Welcome to the Shenandoah Valley live cooking show, which today is not live. As I said, this is a recorded version. This is our 14th, and this is all about agriculture in the Valley. We are fortunate to be hosted by Cave Hill Farms Breweries, which is what you see in the background here. And I am very pleased to have John King with Virginia Poultry Growers Cooperative and Scot Lilly with Farm Credit. And we're going to jump into the topic of about the poultry business first, since we have sent you the turkey drumsticks, and we are not going to be doing this live, of course, because that would take about 3 hours. So John and Scott, thanks for joining us. And I will start with you, John, with the question is, tell us about how the Virginia Poultry Growers Cooperative came about.
Well, Jay, I want to start by saying thanks for having us. Any chance we get to talk, tell the story, we love to do that. Yeah. So we were formed in 2004, and this year we'll be celebrating our 20th year. And it was basically born out of Pilgrim's Pride had decided to close the processing plant, and there were about 160 growers that were going to be looking for a place to send their toms and market their birds. And so we came together, the group of growers did, and raised the funds and invested, and sort of, as they say, the rest is history. But we've had a really fortunate, great run with a lot of great business growth and a good history and investment in the community. And I think, this guy right here will be able to talk to that as well in terms of we have a history of working together. As a matter of fact, we were talking before this that, this industry, this business, agriculture business is so layered in the Valley, where we're all contingent on each other's success and working together. And we've seen a lot of great things together, and communication has greatly improved over the years, and working on different projects together. But
John, you may have given me a perfect segue, and this is to bring in Scott earlier than I thought. But one of the things that you mentioned was that all of the growers came together. Describe what that was, because I don't think the audience really understands sort of the magnitude of the business, of how many growers and the volume of really the goods, the output that would have cost the Valley if that had not happened. And then you can talk about all of the downstream effects, Scott, if that had not happened, because I think it's a remarkable story that one of the big processors decided to pull out, and you created this cooperative.
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at, we're talking about hundreds of millions of pounds of turkey that were at stake, and generational farmers. And today we're nearly 200 farms. So that shows you the growth, and we've had a number of generations, even within our existing growers, come back to the farm and say, hey, we want to be a part of this in the future. And that wasn't happening. And it's something that we struggle with in the United States, where the farming community is aging, and trying to get that younger generation involved. But when you're first of all, when you're talking about, at the time, we started up with 130 growers, trying to get 130 growers together and raise that capital and raise those funds to purchase the processing plant and really invest some seed money. And we had some relationships with Farm Credit, came alongside and invested with the co-op. And we also saw that.
Yep, you tell us alive because there's a fly here. Yeah.
But also the same thing with, the impact on those individual farms, and also what that would do, in the banking relationships and those types of things. But trying to get 130 people together to go in one direction is not easy, on a good day. But fortunately, it was a great success story, and we can look back on it now and say, wow, what a great investment this has been for the Shenandoah Valley and the region as a whole. We export to 40 countries now. We have a little over 300 customers. Yes. At a time when our industry has shrunk on the turkey side, we've grown roughly about 35% in 20 years. So we've been really fortunate. We've had a number of firsts in terms of leading the way on animal welfare issues, regulatory things. We've invested hundreds of millions of dollars in new technology. And we have a commitment to local. We like to say committed to the community. And so anytime we can go out and work with partners locally and bring on business that stays in the valley. And that's the nice thing about the patronage. When you look at the hundreds of millions of dollars that have been paid back, Scott and I've talked a lot about patronage over the years, but when you look at that, and that's going right back into our community, and in most cases being invested right here in the valley.
Yeah.
What an awesome success story that is.
Yeah, I'm going to segue to you a little bit, Scott, because you were the first one that really drew attention to some of the infrastructure is necessary that we don't think about, yet we see it all the time. And John just alluded to it, you know, all of these growers, well, they have poultry houses.
Right.
You know, can you talk about, you know, a little bit just of the cost of that infrastructure necessary to even get the birds grown and to the plant?
Well, oddly enough, John and I were talking about that before the show started. You know, I can remember when it was a lot cheaper than it is now. Our industry is no different than every other industry. The cost has gone up. I think, John, you were saying about $600,000 or $700,000 per barn, which in turn then generates tax revenue. And I think we all, as our industry and even as our local governments, we don't always give focus to the fact that these farmers pay a lot of taxes. And I remember when the plug was pulled by the integrator, the discussion was it was about a $200 million negative economic impact on the community.
2004, too.
In 2004 dollars.
That's right.
It was $200 million if that poultry processing plant closed. So that would have affected every car dealer, every bank, every insurance company, every retail store when those dollars left the community. And you know, I want to make sure I give these guys credit. I mean, we're sister cooperatives. We have a lot in common, but their model.
And I'm going to have you explain farm credit, the program managed to the audience as well. Go ahead.
So to these guys' credit, what they have done has been attempted at other places in the country and not succeeded. It's a huge testament to the business acumen, the entrepreneurship, and the work ethic of the people here, and the community sense and the community value of that asset that made it work in this environment when it hasn't other places.
I think you just cannot emphasize enough the community aspect of this business and agriculture, and that there's always, you know, within poultry in particular, there's always been a family situation. If you go back even before the co-ops existed, you know, many of the large poultry brands were run or managed or started in some form by a family, you know, and I'm sure your viewers know some of those popular names, but at the end of the day, you know, we've seen a lot of that be consolidated to where it's more of a corporate environment. And yet the co-op has been able to work with people in the community and really sustain something that is not corporate America. And it doesn't mean we don't have some of those qualities and some of those things, but at the end of the day, you know, I think it's a really different concept. But it's funny because we used to joke all the time, you know, we don't know if it could ever be duplicated.
Right.
I mean, just the process of, you know, the timing of what the market was doing and then getting everyone together and the support. And so we've just been really fortunate, really blessed to see it all come together and continue. You know, not taking it for granted. You look at the last 5 years and how that's challenged everybody through COVID and those types of things. And we were able to keep going through COVID. And a lot of that was because we had investment, we had, you know, banks and people like Farm Credit that would come through and say, no, we're going to continue to support this investment in the business because we know that's good for the community. And it's funny, we talk about the patronage piece, and you know, you get vendors who call and say, hey, we want to know when patronage is going out because we want to make sure we got enough farm inventory. We want to know, we make sure we got enough trucks and cars and things like that. So, you know, that alone is proof that this investment is staying right here in the valley.
It is. John, you're setting me up perfect. Scott, you're the program manager with Farm Credit. A lot of people probably have not heard of Farm Credit. I admit I'm also a patron, an owner of Farm Credit, but talk about the history of Farm Credit and what you do, because I bet people have no clue.
Sure. We are a customer-owned cooperative as a lender, which means all of our members own our business, just like John's members own that business. We run no different than any other lender. We have to be profitable. Every cooperative has to be profitable. The difference is, instead of paying a separate board of shareholders, our borrowers get paid back a portion of the interest they pay us. We've paid as much as 50% of their interest back in certain years. So a little bit like what John said, people start calling and going, okay, when is that patronage check going to come out? Because it gets redeployed in the community. But I think one thing that's unique to the Valley is the Valley very much understands cooperatives. The Valley is very locally focused.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
And for John's business, for our business, that's huge. When those customers understand that they own that business, they want that business to be successful, and they expect it to be well run and be profitable. They just make sure we share it back with them.
Yes. Farm Credit was started in 1916.
1916.
Yes, so more than 100 years old. I purchased our land through Farm Credit
Thank you.
loan that we have, yes, and I thank you because it was made easy, but it does get reinvested, and that's something that we have talked about a lot, in the Valley. But you move here and you can understand it really is a huge community. John mentioned of everybody coming together. Why don't you put some numbers to what the farmers spend to make things happen, like the cost of even just one poultry house?
When you look at the agricultural industry in our region, it's very diverse, but we're in Rockingham County today. Rockingham County is a top 50 agricultural county in the nation. And when you look at areas like California and some areas where there are a lot of high dollar agricultural products, it's almost hard to believe Rockingham County is in the top 50. But looking just at the poultry industry, in the Shenandoah Valley Partnership footprint, it's about a $4.6 billion economic impact of just the poultry industry, not counting the rest of it.
Yeah, billion with a B.
Billion with a B.
That's right. Just the poultry. Yes.
And when you look at the average farmer, the things that they buy, just like other businesses, are expensive. It's not hard at all to spend $150,000 on a tractor.
Yes.
You
Actually,
go
it's
look at
very
a skid steer loader to help maintain a poultry house, you're looking at $70,000 or $80,000, plus the brick and mortar cost. And the beauty of the agricultural industry when the economy is it's so locally focused. That's not getting bought from California, it's getting bought locally, so the dollars stay in the community. But it is a huge economic impact, and we're blessed as an industry here in the Valley to have great partners in industry. Unlike a lot of areas in the country, our industry gets along with the other industries that are here. We have great partnerships, we have labor partnerships, we have factories located right beside farms, and everybody gets along and works together. And that's just something that's very unique in the Valley.
I think for us, you look at, our sales in the last year were about a little over $350 million. And then, but the bulk of that over time, so that's on an annual basis, but when you look at that investment year after year going back, $150 million we've put into modernizing, and we have other projects on the forefront, and you go back, you say, okay, well, if we're doing construction projects and we're doing an investment, whether it be on the farm or out at the facilities, the plants and what have you, that's local construction business that's creating jobs. And we have contractors who call and say, hey, we're looking at some capital expenditures for the next year. What are you going to be investing in? Because if you're going to be doing this, we're going to be buying a cement truck, or we're going to be, so those types of things.
Which is not inexpensive as an
That's
example
right.
as well.
Yeah, so it really builds on itself and keeps going, and then there's going to be funding that needs to happen. And so when you see this big giant machine and you got all these wheels turning, they really have to turn in the right direction all together to make it work.
Yep. John has not also said something about the actual plant, and you run a feed mill as well, correct?
That's right.
Broadway.
Yes.
And so that kept, that rail line open.
That's right.
And people
Very good
employed
point.
with that feed mill, which, helps the farmers, and it's closer by and cuts down on the cost of things. And so.
Well, and we've made some technological advancements over the years that has created a situation where just for farmers, for example, we use more wheat in our diets than we used to. So now that can become a cover crop. So as farmers are out there cycling through over the course of a year, they can raise multiple crops, which is additional income coming into the family farm. Whereas, even 15 years ago, wheat was not an option. But technologically, we've made some changes, dietary changes, working with nutritionists, and it's been able to incorporate those, which has actually been a boon on the other side because the bird has performed better as well. So
Interesting.
And it creates not just a market, it creates a market at a premium price. When you look at the value of a corn crop here versus the Midwest, we're about 50 cents over basis, so 10% boost in price because of the demand that's here from the livestock and poultry industry. So it helps farmers in multiple ways.
Interesting, I didn't know that.
And I think we'll see more of that in the future. I think, we have intentions where we'll be investing on the feed side, without going into too much specific details, but likely on a feed mill operation, which may free up other operations to bring, say, a different type of plant to the valley in a soybean crush plant or a fertilizer plant with the older operations. So it's just constantly looking at the innovation and what we can do. And we're doing the same thing with our customers, where we're able to bring in and say, as we've seen this growth and what have you, and people say, well, I want to be closer to what you're doing. So we've been able to bring some Midwest customers to the valley and help them start up their operations there, which puts us that much closer. And again, now you're talking about more jobs, more tax base building upon that.
I should add that not only are these guys in the businesses that are continuing the economic prosperity of the region, they are great advocates for us in economic development. And both are investors in what we do here, both by your everyday activities, but also in supporting our program. So I thank you. Customers.
Yes.
Who's your audience?
So we have, like I mentioned earlier, a little over 300 customers in 40 different countries. Most of what we do goes another step. So we process the birds and produce the meat, whether it be conventional or organic or antibiotic free. We're one of the largest players in those players in that segment. But when it comes down to it, we're in every major food brand. So if you're buying, Oscar Mayer deli products, if you're buying Dietz and Watson deli products, those things. If you're buying one of those things,
Yes.
if you're at, we're a significant, if not one of the largest player in the smoked parts arena. So Disney.
Yes, and say that again, John.
So
Who's a big customer?
Disney's a big customer for those smoked drums. Universal Studios, their parks and resorts. So all of those types of things where we're a large player in that smoked arena. And so they're just good examples. And I think it's great for people in the valley to know they're touching all these different facets from this little operation here in Hinton, Virginia. And what a great testament that is.
Yeah, thank you. Scott, you have a pretty wide audience too, constituent base.
Yeah, when you look at Farm Credit, as Jay said, we were created in 1916 specifically to serve rural America.
Yeah.
But that's a very broad definition. And it's everything from John's growers with the poultry cooperative to you as a rural landowner is what we exist for. So we do cater to a broad audience by design. We're blessed with about 11,000 customer owners as Farm Credit of the Virginias, which is part of a nationwide farm credit system. Like Virginia Poultry Growers, our membership is the sole reason we exist. And we're very thankful and very blessed to have that. And locally, having partners like Virginia Poultry Growers Cooperative enables us to be successful. Yeah. And we talk back and forth quite a bit between our organization, his organization, the State Dairymen's Association. I can keep on going, but it's an extremely collaborative effort to make agriculture here strong, which props up our local economy.
Yes, and thank you. That was perfect, Scott, because as you, our audience, has heard me say many times, our manufacturing base is really predicated upon what these two guys, what you have just talked about. Food and beverage is dominant manufacturing, but it wouldn't be happening without what you do. And so
collectively, we share in the benefits of having rail transportation, airport access, deep water port access, and east and west interstates. Your business and our business needs that just like every business that's located here.
Yeah.
So all of us share in that stake. We need to make sure those assets remain in place for all of our collective success.
That was one of the things we hadn't talked about, and I was going to say, because people, just food magically appears on the shelves in the store. We often talk about, people really have no clue. But talk about the logistics for a minute. I hadn't planned on spinning, but you just said it perfectly, Scott. You're shipping, the turkey everywhere. We see that with other goods in this region. We won't go into a long story, but if you want to really hear a fabulous story for our podcast, you should tune in to John King's podcast on Shenandoah Valley Life to talk about some of the philanthropic work and rescue type work that has been performed by the Virginia Poultry Growers Cooperative. But I've gotten off track, but we was talking about logistics.
So, I mean, logistics are important. John can speak better to it than me, but it's not just us being able to get the raw product, or our product out, but get the raw inputs in.
That's right.
When you look at our industry especially, you live that every day.
Yeah, we would love to do all of our business right here in the Valley. That would be awesome if we could source everything. And we do a lot of things. We source our packaging, and those things are right here in the Valley. But some things just can't be done. And so this infrastructure is really important when you look at 81, you look at investing in rail, all those types of things that we're doing now. We're upgrading our rail lines, things we want to work close with the railroads. Our dialogue with Norfolk Southern is probably as strong as it's ever been, looking at what the alternatives are. So I figure you might edit that out.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
no,
that's
I'm just
good.
kidding.
That's good. Yeah, that's exactly.
But I also think, Jay, in all honesty, this is where your group has helped excel. If you look at what we're doing on cold storage, we've got to adapt to what the customer wants. And when we started up, one of our key competitive points was we could do a lot of things fresh. And so about 88% of what we do is fresh, which is pretty phenomenal for a company like ours as poultry. But it's shifting, and we're seeing customers who want, because of their supply chain issues, they want to do things differently. And so now we're having to send product as far away to South Carolina for cold storage. And so we're talking with the local cold storages and saying, hey, we're willing to sign up for volume because we think this is important. What can we do? And I think your group does a great job of recruiting in those things and also advocating for all of us to say, hey, we need this investment in the Valley. And we all know the eastern part of the state's very different from the western part of the state, particularly when it comes to investment.
Yes.
And so it takes really a group of us to be fighting for these resources that we all know is limited. Yeah. But boy, has the Valley seen through this period when other regions are shrinking or their base, we've seen incredible, really investment, growth in jobs, one of the few areas growing in that coming out of COVID and those types of things. And I think your group deserves a lot of credit for that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, and for everyone, the ability to get product to market when you live within 8 hours of 2/3 of the population of the East Coast is essential. And for our industry, for industry in general, that access to the customer is what helps us succeed.
Yeah, that's a huge competitive advantage that we have.
Anything else that you want to add?
Well, I appreciate on behalf of Farm Credit the opportunity to be here today and tell our unique story, and we really appreciate the partnership that we have with the Shenandoah Valley Partnership and the unique way that we collaborative, I could say that 5 times, collaborate as a group to promote industry and promote the Shenandoah Valley.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Scott is one of our ex-board members for the Shenandoah Valley Partnership and has been very engaged in the community in general. John is, you've heard me mention the Go Virginia program. Well, John is at state board level and filling that role as a representative for our region. So we appreciate very much what you do. Absolutely. Very much. And remember, if you go to a vineyard, as Scott told me, you're going to a farm.
Absolutely. There you go.
So
Absolutely.
we encourage that. We encourage that.
This is a unique event because this is at an on-farm brewery.
Yes.
Which there are a very small number of, and he does produce a certain amount of his own hops here on the farm, but you will get into that with him later in the show.
Yes, later in this show is going to be a different segment, but we're going to put it all together, and you're exactly right. And you'll hear the history and the multiple businesses that are being run on this farm for this to continue a multi-generational, multi-100-year farm.
Well, I think if you had said, we go back a ways, and you go back, if we had ever said even maybe 15 years ago, agritourism.
Right.
And
Exactly.
the impact it's going to have, and that, hey, this barn right here, one day this is going to be a wedding venue, or it's going to be a brewery, or it's going to be a winery. We would have been like, I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but wow, the vision that it takes to see that through, and then the investment of the community to partake in all that, to be part of that. What a great story.
Including the governmental support, not just at the local level, but at a state level, to give us the flexibility to do some different things with properties than what they had historically. I mean, we're standing in a former dairy barn.
Yeah.
But it took governmental change and governmental policy being in place to allow that to happen. So that's part of our success as well.
I think that's actually a good shout out for our Virginia Department of Ag and Consumer Services. They are very progressive. They're very engaged in economic development from the ag industry side, and that's something that we're trying to be, with your gentleman's help, is to be more active and conversant in the story. So this has been as much of a learning process and helping me be able to talk the language as it is getting the story out to you. So we really appreciate it.
You know, I think we all sit on a number of groups and a number of committees, and I think some of the ones that are the most successful are these public-private partnerships, where people are talking and bringing different expertise into the room, and you can't forget government has a role. You know, sometimes we don't like to talk about government's role, particularly if it involves
We like to talk
taxes
about what they
and-
do wrong.
That's right. But I think at the end of the day, government has an important role. And the fact that we've seen, particularly in Virginia, this willingness, and I think it's stronger in the Valley than most places in Virginia, you know, for the entities to come together and work on solutions for these projects together. That's where that public-private partnership, it leads to stuff like this.
It does. It does. Anything else to add?
Sir.
I don't think so.
Gentlemen, I appreciate it. Now, you can stick around and help make the crema if you want. I know that you've got to go back. I know that you've got things, but you're welcome to stay for the very short cooking portion of what we're doing.
We'll turn that over to the expert.
There you go. You don't want me anywhere
Wouldn't say
near
that's
this stuff.
I'm an expert eater. I'm not an expert cook.
Yeah.
Yes, well, thank you again, John.
Well, thanks for having us.
Scott,
Yeah,
and
thanks for having us.
We love what you do here in the Valley and appreciate, you know, joining us on the program and what you do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate it.
I'll let you go. You probably want to go this way.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
We'll try to take the flies with us.
Yeah, thank you. And while they're doing that, you can see in the background this brewery and venue is practically a museum. We're going to start with the cooking portion. It's going to be very brief, just by the very nature. You can see one of the finished products right up here on the table. This is actually a smaller turkey drumstick, and John has tried to provide that for everybody. Obviously, this one has been cooked. We're not doing the 3 hours. I will tell you that I'm going to go through very quickly the brine recipe for that, which is basically using either 2 cans of, and here we're talking Cave Hill, 2 cans of your favorite lager, which we're going to be supplying some, or one of these, which will take care of that. A 1/4 cup of salt, a 1/4 cup of brown sugar. I used a 1/4 cup of whole peppercorns in there and 1 bay leaf. And because these are so large, unless you have a really large tin and you have space in the refrigerator, we used gallon Ziploc bags to do that. I say we because believe me, this was a partnership between my wife and I when we were doing this part. 4 hours minimum for the brine. I did it for an entire day. Just made it very simple. After they come out of the brine, use Shenandoah spice that we gave you. We've sent you 2 different ones. You can choose whichever one that you like and rub it in really, really well with some olive oil to keep it on there. And then preheat your grill at 300 degrees and cook them for a minimum of 2 hours. But if you have a probe, you want to get the turkey to 165 degrees. I personally cooked ours at about 300. We have a nice smoker and used the probe, and we did it 2.5 hours. And that turned it out perfect. When you look at it, it will be pink. That's the very process of the brining and the smoke. Do not worry about that. As long as you've got it to 165 degrees, it will be good. And it really is good. For the crema that goes along with this, I'm just going to show you. It is a very simple recipe. And it is a cup of mayonnaise, with the other ingredients. We used, fresh cilantro, garlic, which I'm not crushing this, but if you have a garlic press, this is a great time to use it. A heavy beer glass on the bottom is a perfect way to crush it. That's what this is here, is the garlic. That was onion powder, and then this is the zest from a lime and the lime juice that is required. And this is as much work as needed here, and it's done. It's the simplest thing I've made on the program by far. Here, but it is a great sauce, the crema, to go with the turkey. Also looking at trying to do this with yogurt. I'm not a big mayonnaise guy, but I think that yogurt with the same ingredients would work really well also, and I think it would be good for different meats. And so you will receive some of the ingredients for this. You'll receive we should have received by the time you see this. I keep forgetting I'm not live for a change. And we hope that you will enjoy this portion. So we're going to end up this section of the program now. I hope that you enjoyed our interview with John King with Virginia Poultry Growers Cooperative and Scot Lilly with Farm Credit, the two gentlemen who are very engaged in the community and helping the Valley in a big way and are big supporters of us and basically our success, our business success and from the ag side in the Valley. So we'll be cutting to Walter Gator Hopkins next in talking about Cave Hill Farms. Welcome back to the second part of our ag show. We're at Cave Hill Farms Brewery, a little bit different angle, with the owner of Cave Hill Farms, which is Walter Gator Hopkins. Gator to me and everybody else that's a friend. And it was Gator's idea that we're here on the saddles, and just let you know, this is the kind of person that Gator is. We have some fun. So Gator, I'm going to just dive right into, first of all, talk about the farm. The brewery is just one part of what you do, but tell us the history of the farm. This is a multi-generational farm.
Yeah. Well, first of all, we're very glad to be here today talking, and I'm sorry that we got interrupted last week, but I got to tell the audience we had our first grandchild in Atlanta. So we're glad to be here today.
Good excuse. We're going to give you that one.
Thank you, Jay. It was very exciting. Now back to the business part of this and the history of the farm. So it's, of course, no doubt one of the oldest farms in East Rockingham. In 6 years, we will be doing the 200-year celebration. My great-great-great-great-grandfather built the manor house, as we know it, that saw parts of the Civil War. It stands there today, and since 1830, as we turned it into a bed and breakfast
Yes.
a couple 20 years ago. And the farm through those years, those 200 years, has been very, very diverse operation. The farm has produced every kind of crop, growing crop and animal crop that you can think of, with the exception of cotton and tobacco.
Yeah, which is not
we're
good
just
for
too
this.
far-
Yeah,
that's
just too
right.
far north. Yeah.
And the most recent crop that has been very exciting to us, that relates to this right here, has been hops.
Hops.
The
Yeah.
hops, and so the Old Dominion Hops Cooperative put us on as a board member several years ago, and we led the Hops Cooperative, and we had many meetings right in here, and the growth of hops in Virginia is, yeah, it's been tried, but again, back to the crops, every kind of crop, again, with the exception of those two. The animal crops, think of it, it's been here, especially in fowl and poultry.
Yep.
Dad was a big poultryman for years. He was into everything. He was into all phases of farming and development and agriculture and everything. I guess through my 45 years of business, through the evolution of the companies, and well, we started out in industrial maintenance, and after 2 colleges and high school and 2 colleges, I got into the industrial maintenance part of the business, which I founded in 1980 as Cave Hill Mechanical. Later changed the name to Cave Hill Corporation, and under that falls all the other group entities of manufacturing, outdoor advertising, the farming, the hospitality, and the Gator together.
Yep.
The
Yes,
Gator
yes,
Gator.
yes. And that's a story in
That
and of
is
itself.
a story,
But,
yeah.
But that's your operation next door, correct?
Yes. And so
I say next door, it's that way,
yes,
that direction
that's right.
wise.
Yes. So here we came after those 44, 45 years. Actually, at that time, it would have been 40 years when I told my lovely wife, Lisa, that I think we're going to try this farm brewery thing out just as a kind of
As a hobby, right? Yeah,
as
just-
a retirement, as a semi-retirement project.
How's that working
It
out?
didn't work out at all. I'm working more now than ever. So, and pardon my hoarseness today. I've had an allergy, but so 4 years ago, the brewery is only 4.5 years old, and it's really been exciting. My biggest excitement is just meeting the people that come here from all over the dang place.
Yes.
They're coming into Massanutten, a project that Dad started 53 years ago, started Massanutten Development, Massanutten Resort.
Yeah, tell the audience a little bit about that, because it doesn't probably mean anything to them, but it is a resort, ski resort, but now a full year resort.
Yeah. Well, my father, looking back in the history of things, he started and founded Massanutten Development, Massanutten Resort, and it was in 1971, of course, doing much infrastructure and everything prior to 71 when it was announced.
Yeah.
But in 71, put the resort together with some other locals, and the resort now, having come through all the years and developments and everything, brings so many people here that come here to the farm that visit from all over the place. And the biggest thing that they're enthused about is the location, the convenience, the size that we can offer. We can have 5 events going here in 5 different locations at one time. We're getting more and more into the wedding business. We are wanting to get more and more into corporate events and corporate, the camps,
Yes.
corporate camps, weekend camps, and that kind of thing. We just started a campground here on the farm, and we're developing towards the Harvest Host. So with the people coming to Massanutten and coming to here and visiting and seeing all that, the Farm Museum over here on our side. And this, by the way, I'm glad to tell you, is being developed by my sister and youngest brother into a whole new entity that is going to be relatively close right here in McGaheysville on a whole nother project where they're taking all the inventory, the excess inventory that we had in 5 different barns on 3 different farms and putting it together up on Con Road. So that will be, the stuff that's in here will stay. So the point is, for the brewery, is it's exciting. And I've learned a lot. And I've learned a lot about the hops. We, again, always enjoy the people coming here. The whole issue that developed me for the excitement to get into the brewery was not the alcohol. It was not at all. It was, for me, it was the engineering part, putting it together, the thermal, the cooling, the electric, the electronics, the forming, the floors, the doors, the infrastructure, everything that you see here. We did all this ourselves. There was no contractors. Well, I take it back. The only contractor that came in here was the floor guy.
Was the concrete.
We did everything else on plumbing, electrical, the setup, the equipment, and everything. The equipment was specified pretty much by myself, and it had several unique specifications that went into it. And so here we are, 4.5 years later, and we're having fun, and especially today doing this is great, Jay.
Exactly. Well, you did a great description of the brewery here, which I truly appreciate because I've talked about it a number of different times.
I know you have.
We like it. But it's just one of the businesses that you run to help support the farm. Talk about the bed and breakfast a little bit.
Well, the bed and breakfast, going back to the manor house, my father, late father, he left us 6 years ago, and in what, 20 days, it will have been 6 years, time flies. He developed the manor house for a hospitality bed and breakfast about 20 years ago. It's been very successful. Again, we see some of the darndest people from all over the United States coming to the Cave Hill Farms bed and breakfast. It's a 6-bedroom house. It's fully equipped. It's, we're developing now another wedding venue down there. We've got one here. We're developing another one there that will accompany everything else, all the other amenities and characteristics that are down there. The hospitality is one part. Another part of things that we do is manufacturing. We are in the tank building business, steel storage tanks. And we've been doing that since, oh gosh, time flies, 1980. And we're in the dumpster building business, steel, 30-yard roll-off dumpsters. And my most exciting thing has got to be the building of the world-famous Gator Getter.
Please explain that to the audience, because unless people may not know what a Gator is out on the highway.
Well, I can tell you
how you go about.
Jay, I can tell you.
that.
I can tell you about the Gator Getter. The last country that I was in, that engineering took and found a little company in McGaheysville, Virginia.
Yes.
Halfway around the world in Malaysia.
Yes.
And I went to Malaysia. This was before COVID. COVID changed the way we all do things and do business and interact. And that would have been in 2018. And I never will forget, I was burning up. I had a felt hat on. I was of the wrong kind of hat in the wrong country.
In the wrong country, in the
and
wrong
so we
time
were
of
in
climate.
Malaysia. But the whole point to the visit, the product, you all are wondering, what's a Gator Getter? Well, the Gator Getter is, I'm glad to say, a patented one of a couple different things that I've got going in proprietary development.
Yes.
It's a highway debris cleaning tool that will clean all debris off the nation's and surface transportation's surfaces at full speed.
Yes, without having to stop.
At full speed, and everybody can clean it off at slow speed. We clean deer off the road at 50, 60, 70 miles an hour. Equipment that mounts on the front of a truck, and it's taken me to 9 different countries around the world.
Yep.
And so there's the manufacturing part, and outdoor advertising, in case I did or didn't say.
Yeah.
But all of them are group entities that help to vertically integrate and to complement and to just to bring together the ability to put all this in here and together. And again, I'm so glad to say our own group and construction division groups that put it all together. And we did some of this, all the steel manufacturing at the plant.
Yeah.
The stainless steel some of that was done there. But it's just really exciting. It's totally awesome. And to see, Jay, the industry having evolved, and after the state and the legislature so rightfully endorsed and embraced the solicitation to these kind of events on the farm.
Yes.
It's fantastic to bring. I think about it often that from the old days of just old dirty stinky farms, with the real farming that still goes on here, heavy
That's
duty.
right. Yes.
This is a heavy duty working farm. I mean, hey, and it still stinks on stink day. It still stinks, so don't worry.
Yeah.
But it's a good stink, but I often think about how far we've come in agritourism, agribusiness, and agri-solutions to bring this kind of stuff right down to the farm and into this building that used to have livestock in it.
This was a part of the dairy operation.
This was one of 2 loafing barns right here on one of the oldest long-running dairy farms in East Rock and M County. It was big for that time, a big dairy farm, not in today's standards, but
500 head, right?
Well, 250 cows at that time.
Yep.
Yeah, and 2 different barns. This is one of 2. The milking parlor was up here.
Yep.
It's actually 6. It's right now it's 7 barns here. 7 barns on the farm, and so here we are.
Yeah.
After all that.
Yeah.
And so, reutilization of the building, the space. I think often about this building. I can remember like yesterday, the day that my father in 1960 I can remember it just like yesterday. I can remember when he was out here on a tractor helping to set these poles.
Set all of the rafters and poles.
Yeah. And this thing is built like what kind of a outhouse,
Yeah.
But it's so we're here and we're glad to be here and it's all good. But I still say the best thing is just meeting the people. And we're so glad to talk to the audience today about all this.
Yes. Well, Gator, I'm going to wrap it up there, but thank you for hosting us. Thank you Gator is also an investor in the Shenandoah Valley Partnership. He is certainly an investor in this region with his entrepreneurship and is always working on the next project. And we really appreciate that kind of spirit in what you do for the ag sector here.
Yeah.
So
Jay, we're glad to be here and fully super glad to be in the Shenandoah Valley Economic Development.
Yeah, we appreciate it, and we appreciate the use of the Black Sheep Lager, which is sent to you for brining the turkey.
Excellent.
Gator,
okay.
Thank you, and thank you for joining us on this 14th version of our show, our cooking show. I can't believe it's already been 14, and we've had fun with
phenomenal.
it.
Phenomenal.
So thank you very much, and we'll look forward to seeing you again.